Hi, Tracy. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm amazing today. I'm looking forward to a great time of fun on your podcast today. Thank you for the invitation.
I was so excited when you said, yes, of course, I'll be your first. Whoop, whoop.
Absolutely. I love being the first.
Right on. Well, welcome to the Productive Meeting and Training podcast with Penny. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how I know you have some different leadership roles. I'm sure you've been in some meetings and I'm sure you've had to train some people on how to do certain tasks or procedures. And I want to pick your brain a little bit about those things. But first of all, let's hear a little bit about your background. What kind of roles have you led with a team?
So I came into leadership early at the age of 19 years old. I was leading at the time, I was in a four-star restaurant in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I came up very, very quickly from the dish tank in the kitchen. They called it a dish dog. So I was a dish doggy dog.
Dish dog.
So I came in there and I worked the first night. They hired me back then. They hired me for $5.50 an hour, and I thought, wow, that's an amazing rate. And of course, that's not much today. That night they gave me six, and I'm like, man, I got a 50-cent raise on the first night. About 2 months later, I was the one leading the dish team. And so I was one helping with the schedules and stuff like that. And then about 3 more months later, they said, hey, there's an opportunity in another location where you can lead the entire dish team. What you're doing here, do it over there, about 25 miles away. So I said, yeah, and they gave me more money. I worked there for a little bit in that role, and they said, well, what if we're going to open up lunch, and what if you just led the entire lunch team on the kitchen side? So I'm going to move from the dish tank to the kitchen side. That's a big difference. And so I said, yeah, you give me the training. So they trained me in night shift in the kitchen. And then before you know it, about 4 months, I was leading a team, doing lunch. And then from there, they said, we're going to cancel lunch. It's not doing the volume. We're going to go back to dinner. We want you to lead the entire kitchen. So here I
Wow.
was. So I graduated in 1994, and by 95, I was leading, 40-year-old men that had been I mean, that's all they knew was, and here I am, just 19-year-old punk. I can't grow any whiskers. And like I mean, like I'm writing their schedule. I'm considering their home, their family life. And so I led that kitchen. I was there for about 4 years, and then left that location, went into the ministry, and in the ministry as a pastor, leading that team for leading. I led a youth group for 3 years, and then went into the pastorate role, and so leading about 30 plus kids, and then leading about 60, 75 people in a local church for these last 20 years. And so
Wow.
there's been a lot of leadership there. I've also led through organizations such as Chick-fil-A, and they hired me on for that specific reason. They called me the director of people and culture. And so there was a
Love
lot
it.
of team leads, that meetings that we had to have, a lot of leadership involved in that. So that's the short of it. And one thing I've learned about in all of these teams that I've been a part of as a leader is that people are people, and people are messy.
They are
But I
messy.
also learned that people are your greatest competitive advantage. They're not an asset, like your car, your computer, your telephone. Those are assets. Some people call their team an asset. They're an advantage. It's what separates you from everybody else. I like the together everyone accomplishes more approach when you're thinking about a team, but you got to have the right people on your team. And there's got to be a lot of buy-in. And there's obviously other leadership principles, but that was the one thing that I learned, that while people are messy, when I went into the ministry, they said, older men said, well, the ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people. I'm like, well, who would you serve? If there's no people, who you're serving? I mean, like, you got into the ministry just to like serve yourself, I guess. So I never understood that, but I understand people are messy, but without people, we don't get anything done.
Yeah.
So
No,
those are two principles I learned.
we need those people, don't we? We can't do it by ourselves
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something there about buy-in. So I'm wondering, does the buy-in make things more effective? Or like what do you mean about buy-in?
So buy-in is, when you have everybody on the same page. So if you have buy-in, like, and this happens in sports all the time on a sports team. I think one of the greatest examples of the power of buy-in came years ago. I think it was in the 90s when they had the dream team in the Olympics from America. They had different guys from the NBA and they put them all into one team. And everyone, I mean, you're talking about there's a lot of inflated egos on one basketball court. And it was their coach who had coached, I believe, the Detroit Pistons at the time. Their coach had to kind of corral these men with all these egos that are playing on separate teams throughout the states, and in order to get buy-in. But when they came into the Olympics, they dominated. But what has to happen is you have to check the inflated ego at the door. In order to get buy-in, it has to do with the vision. And that vision has to be clearly communicated. If I can't buy into the vision, I can't buy into the team.
Isn't that so true? It has to be very clear, crystal clear, so that we know what direction that whoever's leading wants us to go into. And then do we agree with that direction? I think
Right.
that that's how I would summarize it.
Penny, I was thinking about like as we're kind of coming into this, and of course I'm writing notes. I don't have notes in front of me and stuff like that. I like to do it raw and have fun with it and let what I've learned and my experiences, speak for themselves. But one thing I was thinking of is, people leave people in organizations, and when there's not buy-in, people are looking for exit signs. And what I mean by that is they, like in a marriage, if there's not buy-in, you're looking for an exit. And I think people look for an exit and there's no buy-in, when they don't like what they do anymore, or they don't like who they do it with anymore, or they don't like who they do it for anymore. So they don't
Yeah.
like the leadership, they don't like the team and the customers, and they don't like, like, I just want to try something new.
Mm.
People begin to look for exit signs. And so that's a surefire indication that you don't have a lot of buy-in, is because everybody's looking for a way out.
That's a terrible position to be in when people, you can see it in their eyes, like they're like, oh, I don't really want to be here, or they start showing up late, they're not as invested, maybe not
So
even
true.
doing the job as well. You don't see that same
Hmm.
passion. I've seen it in myself. I'm like, I'm losing interest here.
Yeah.
I'm getting bored, or like you say, I don't like my position, or I don't like the people. There's something that's off. And if that doesn't get fixed, yeah, we just move on,
Absolutely.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
how can we respond to that? Like, how can we fix that? We don't want to keep, rehiring. I know that that's very exhaustive, that we do have to keep hiring, but can we keep some of those great people instead of losing them? What are some techniques that you've used?
Um, well, there's a resource out there called "Everyone Communicates, Few Connect," and it's John Maxwell's one of my mentors, and what he says in that resource, and what I've heard him say from the stage, is that when there is no connection, there will never be any communication. And one thing I learned from, like, I think it was Jack Welch from General Electric years ago, is like he led by walking around, by connecting with the team. There's just something about, when I was with Chick-fil-A especially, I had the luxury, I call it a luxury, of not being locked down in position to where I could make connections out with the guests and I could connect with my team, and where I structured myself. And you think about Chick-fil-A, if they have them there in Canada, the the way that Chick-fil-A is structured, everybody has a position. There's beverages, there's an order taker, there's a front counter person. There, everybody's in, and when it's in a rush, you're in lockdown. I position myself at what's called utility. And utility is like, the person that's making the beverage, I need ice to drive. And so they're like, so they're screaming out, I hear you, ice, I got you. And I put myself as the servant to everybody. I need more bags for, like maybe they're bagging the orders. I need more bags up here to the front line. I hear you, bags, I got your bags. And like, I put myself as that servant to where I can connect with everybody on my team, and all my team feels supported. So one way, as far as finding buy-in, I would never want somebody to leave because the leadership. And that would be that, in my mind, that would be a disgrace to me. So remember, coming back to, people leave people when they don't like what they do, they don't like who they do it with, or they don't like who they do it for. And I put that in my head and say, okay, I don't want anybody else to leave because of me. I want to ensure I've connected with them so that they'll listen when I communicate with them. And like we said, having that buy-in. Now, the struggle really didn't come from like what we're doing, because in the food service industry, there's what's called lifers. A lifer in the food service is just one that they just love food service. They love the energy, they love the schedule, they're a lifer. But really where I found a lot of not buy-in, that I felt like, man, I don't have much control, is in the friction between people on my team. So it wasn't really from the team to me, it was actually from the team to each other. And that was probably the biggest hurdle that I ever faced as far as getting buy-in. It's the guy out in California in the 1990s that said, why can't we all just get along? I like, because we're not the same. And that makes it challenging. That was the hardest thing about leadership as far as getting the buy-in.
Okay, I want to just pause right there. So we're going to come back to that because it's really, really important piece. How do we get the cohesion of the people working
Yeah,
together?
true.
Definitely. I do really agree about your connection with people. And when I went to university to become a teacher and all that, they really pounded home the whole relationship thing. And of course, that fit with it, just naturally fit with who I am. So it was easy to absorb
Hmm.
and to grow that. It's all about relationships. So, but that's everywhere too. It's relationships in business. It's relationships with other people. That connecting, that connection somehow. And if we don't have that connection, we can't build a community.
Yeah,
And
right.
I have to be, as a teacher, I always had to be building a community within the people that I was given. So those were my staff, right? That's my team.
Hmm.
And there's people coming and going depending on when they graduate and whatnot. But the new person coming in had to be onboarded or integrated or like balanced back into this new team, and you kind of remake this team with this new person. And then seeing people leave was sad. But nevertheless,
Hmm.
we all were quite a little community. And when I taught at the college, just in Warman here, not too far from where I live, there was women in there who were over 50. There was women who were about 30. And then there was women who were like just 18, just brand new. And it
Yeah.
was so amazing that we were able to build a culture of mentoring.
Hmm.
The older women were mentoring the younger women, and guess what, the younger women were mentoring the older women as well. It was like a two-way street, and it was such a wonderful family feeling that we had in that classroom. And many of the students would stay with me for a year, but some of them were there for a couple of years. It was competency based, and as they went along, they were learning as they were going, and some took longer or they were part-time.
Hmm.
So I know about building that community and trust and relationships, and you're so true. If that doesn't happen, we got nothing.
Yeah. You brought up and I loved what you said there, and I absolutely agree. When you have this connection, you can now communicate. We have these devices, and if you're on that, then the call drops, or you're talking like, hello, hello, uh, hello. You can't communicate when there's no connectivity, and so you got to have the connection, you got to have the communication. But you brought up a very powerful word that I think applies especially to what we're talking about, the culture. And the culture, in my view, culture is just an expression of common values. So like if the culture sucks in an organization, it's because no one knows what the values are, or else they've never defined the values, or they've got people that, like, yeah, that's the company value. Like, hey, what's your core values? I think they're on like a piece of paper. If I had the company playbook, I could tell you. If you haven't internalized the core values, everybody's just showing up however they feel that day, and that culture is going to clash. So, like, one thing that we did was we just defined what are our key values. It's commitment, it's quality, it's excellence, it's service. Okay, great. Those are the 4 pillars. And then rehearsing them, not by definition, not by memorization, but by internalization. Internalizing, I don't think any core value gets internalized without a story. The story is the glue. So I would begin asking them, like when I would meet with my executive leaders, okay, so great. Somebody tell me one of our core values. Commitment. Okay, what's another one? Excellence. What's another one? Quality. And the last one? Who's got it? Who's got it? Yep. Okay, go ahead. Service. Okay, great. Where do we see commitment show up this week? Somebody tell me a story.
Mm-hmm.
The story is the glue or the adhesive that makes the value stick. A definition doesn't make it stick. It's too clinical. It's because have you ever had somebody like, hey, what does honesty mean to you? It means, like you tell the truth all the time. Okay, what does integrity mean to you? It's kind of like honesty. You tell the truth, like, well, that's not what it means. By definition, they mean something different. And so I've always asked people like, okay, your core values, commitment, excellence, quality, service, great. What does excellence mean to you? Well, the definition, no, I don't need the definition. What does it mean to you? If you saw it, what would it look like? That's truly getting closer to culture, to where when it shows up, you know what it looks like because you've got stories to back it up. And so, to your point there, and I know I'm giving a little lengthy exhortation about this because culture is so valuable, and it goes to what we're talking about how do we get teams to stay and plugged in, bought in, is they have to have common values, express that in the culture. And if your culture sucks, then we've got an issue with the values. At least that's what I've seen in my experience.
Okay. Okay. So let's just unwrap that a little bit. The whole story piece is really perfect because last night I was working with um, I was doing a facilitation and we were talking about just learning words. So I also work with newcomers to Canada, some of our immigrants learning English. So
Mm.
we were talking about analogies. So to me, the story is an analogy.
Yep.
And the analogy, the way we were describing it, is that it's a complex feeling or situation that you kind of put into a different light. And I was using the example of, oh, when a situation is kind of bad, then it's like a pair of shoes that don't fit. And there's
Hmm.
like blood. I said there was blood on my feet and these shoes, I've got the the
Blisters.
the blisters and the skin falling off and everything, and that's an analogy.
Yeah.
So it's a story, and people
Hmm.
connect to stories. We know that. Being in Toastmasters for years, that was the same thing. Tell a story, tell a story,
Yeah.
weave everything into a story, and that help people relate with it. And that's
Yep.
back to, why do we want them to relate? Because we want to connect. And when we connect, then things work.
Yeah.
We understand each other. And then
Yeah.
we start to see, oh, we have common values.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how, from the story, we start to see, oh, that's a person. And I
Yeah.
see, like, oh, I have similarities to that person. Well, if it's just
Mm-hmm.
a dictionary definition, I can't relate to that, or I don't see the
So
human
true.
connection.
So true.
So when you were saying, how do we make the team kind of stick together and keep those, the fighting or the
Mm-hmm.
animosity that might be happening, I think it's linking back to the culture. So maybe you can speak about that. How, if we have those, which I think you've already touched on, if those key values are similar,
Yeah.
and then it makes it easier for us to work together rather than maybe at odds, because, oh, I see you as a person now, I see what we have in common. And then there's, doing all of those team building type of activities that bring the groups together. And I like how you were saying in the meetings, you were like, okay, tell me something good, or tell me, how did, so, like, I don't know what you said. Tell me again about the it within the team. You would you would ask them to
So
share
I'd
something.
ask them, hey, okay, like we always do, what's our core values? What do we stand for? And
Right.
just like a little deeper thread, your mission is kind of like the roof of the organization. It's why we exist. And here's the medium is chicken sandwich, or the medium is ink pens or t-shirts, or in our space, facilitation or coaching and public speaking, whatever. It doesn't matter the medium. You're going to have a mission, you're going to have a vision, you're going to have values. And in the structure of a home, people can see your roof first off. They can see every aspect of your roof. That should be your mission. It's why we're in business. So there should be a mission statement to provide quality care for every patient that we come in contact with. Okay, that's something that you can remember, right? So that's a mission. This is just telling the world, why do we exist as a dental clinic? If that's their medium, that's their product or service. So you got this mission. Underneath the roof, obviously, are rooms. It's the main structure, the living quarters, and that's where your vision is housed. So mission answers the why we exist. Vision answers where we're going. The team needs to know where we're going. So like in my home, we have a theme, we have themed rooms. If you walked into my home, I live in southern Oklahoma. But if you come into my house, it looks like we live in Florida, because we're beach bums. We like the beach. I mean, there's salt water. Here's the family by the beach and a big portrait over the piano,
Mm.
and it just like there's palm leaves, and I mean, it's themed. Like, where are we going? Well, if you walk into my house, like, these people are going to the beach eventually. Like, we have this is our vision. If you go into our house, it's not just a lot of generic pictures on the wall. It's family. You can see it. So the vision is the interior of the home, and the team needs to recognize that. They need to know, when they come here, where are we going? That's the vision. Then at the base, the foundation of the entire structure, that's where your values rest. And those values are how you do everything. So if the mission answers the question why we exist, and the vision answers where we're going, the values describe how we do everything. So coming back to the quality, service, excellence, commitment, if those were our four core values, and they don't have to be four, I like anywhere from 3 to 5 I just settle in on 4, but I like 3 to 5. I like a handful.
Mm.
So mine are family, faith, freedom, fun, and my friends. So, and not in any random order, because on this hand, there's not one digit that's more important than the other. I want them all. Like, I don't want to lose my thumb. I
No
don't want to
way.
lose one of my fingers. I mean, like, I want them all. So, like, but imagine how difficult it is to have 7 values. Now it's harder to remember. So, like, for the human mind, I like 3 to 5 is really where I'm at.
Yeah.
So let's just say that it was 4, and I've got those 4. There's going to be a cornerstone value. And so when somebody's on the outside looking in and they want to join your team, they're asking, will I fit? No one works very long at an organization where they don't belong.
You're back. You're
Okay.
back. You're back. You went to the beach
Okay.
for a second there. I saw
I,
you. You're
I,
out sun tanning, like, ah.
it just said, hold on. So, anyway, so so when coming back to serve and facilitate the question. So those core values, how do I do everything when they come in? Are we like-minded? In other words, the work that we're going to do in the food service industry, are we like-minded? But then are we like-valued?
And I think sometimes what happens too is there's certainly a core of those. And then we want to make sure that we're kind of incorporating what each person brings to the table as well into those larger kind of visions or missions that we have. I feel if the people are able to bring in their contribution or their little take on it, and then show them how that connects to our values, that yeah, we are the same. If we can somehow make that analogy or show them that we are similar. And I'll give you a good example about that: religion. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I work with a lot of different ethnic backgrounds and religious backgrounds in some of my work. And my focus when I work with them is when we talk about religion or we talk about some of these customs that are in Canada, I try to point out what are the similarities. Like, I'm
Mm.
not going to point out what are the differences so much. I'm not, that isn't going to be my main focus. My main focus is usually, oh, well, this is similar. Christians also do fasting, same as Muslims fast. So I've tried to find the commonality rather than no commonalities or looking at things that don't match up.
Hmm.
And it actually brings the people together because it's like, oh, well, I didn't know because I thought we were that, so unique or so different. Well, you are unique and different, but there are a lot of things that are similar as well. And then that's another way of building that community and keeping that bond together and seeing each other as
Yeah.
another person.
Hmm. Yeah. And that there is power in, everybody has their own core values, but coming in, what keeps us together is where we're likely in agreement.
So I want to tie this back to the point of my podcast is how do we have good meetings and good trainings? And I think from my perspective, help me out with this, is that I think what we've been talking about is building those core relationships, those core connections within the team, with each other, with the leader and the people in the
Mm.
team. How does that help us when we are trying to train people on how to do something new for them, or those weekly meetings?
Okay. Okay. So there's 2 different questions within that. I think with those weekly meetings, I think it's recognizing the mistakes that are made on weekly meetings. Either on the meeting, the 5 mistakes that I found most that appear most is the meeting's too long.
Yes.
The meeting on the agenda is too much. The meeting is too boring.
Yep.
The meeting is too heavy. And what I mean by that is it's just too serious. There's not time for personal check-in or something like that. And I think in the meeting, it's too many. Too many people are there. Right. So if you think about, like, if you want to have an effective team meeting and have more, generate more buy-in, whether it's a training circle that you're providing, you're trying to facilitate, then make sure that you don't have too much on the agenda to cover, because that's going to make the meeting too long. And when meetings get too long, they become too boring. When they're too boring, it may be because they're too serious or too heavy, and there's not that light portion of the meeting where we're collecting wins and stuff like that, and we're laughing. And then it's all of this comes because we have too many people in the room. And those are the 5 mistakes that I've seen in the facilitation of meetings. And that, like, if I was a team member, no wonder I'm late. No wonder please have me excused.
Mhm.
My son has a t-shirt that says, "I'm sorry I was late. I didn't want to come."
Yeah.
And people who are tardy, it's because they're telling you, "I don't want to be there." And what does that tell you as the leader? It tells you that there's very little buy-in, at least for this meeting.
Well, yep. Okay, I better let you go. And
Yes.
thank you for the wonderful time together. Yeah, I'm not
And
sure. I just need to absorb all this, and well, I'll definitely have you back again.
well, I would be honored to do that.